Jean Harris. I was born and raised here in Rendville. I've not lived here my whole life, but I have returned several years ago. Well, I guess we just weren't aware that we were, or I was not aware uh, of the difference of life outside of Rendville. Um, Maybe that's a really tiny view to begin with on life, but I think it served myself and a lot of other people, most of the people, well, because later on when I was in the years when all the demonstrations and all the things were going on in the South, and I've said before, I was just like, what is all this about? What is going on? Because it just never really occurred to me before all this became, in public media, that there were places where everybody didn't sit in the same classroom, have the same teacher, use the same facilities, go to the same churches, and just be neighbors. I didn't realize that that was such a problem. I was aware, that there was, some issues, but I had no idea the problem was so enormous as all that, and I was really a little confused, and I had to so let it absorb, that this is reality outside of Renville, because all my life it was just, people have always referred to it as a black community. Well, in a sense that's correct, but in the real sense it was just a mixed community. That's what it was all my life. And so the people that were here weren't here under someone else's rule. They were their own law keepers, their own council, their own mayor. The people that served the community and ran the community were a part of the community. So they were just everyday people to me, and I looked right to me. I wouldn't see why the whole world wouldn't be doing things the same way, but I think it sent us out of this village with a little bit different perspective, because, as I say, you go out and you've been really isolated with just one group. Now, we had small town probably issues that we had to learn to live in the bigger world, but racially it was just already there. We already learned how to live together. And so that I find, it's my opinion, having lived here, that people are pretty much just plain ignorant. And some of them are educated, but they're still ignorant to the human element and what it means, to live the way we live. You just accepted yourself and everyone else as equals. We are all part of the same system. And so when I see the big divide now in the world and the issues that come out of that, and then you see other elements like the media and different things, everyone jumps in the gap with their opinions. And so that it's just really different. If people would just understand that we know, we learn that it's a reality that people can live together. We don't have to actually love one another, but we will learn to respect one another and treat each other with respect, and hopefully go beyond that to the Christian concept. But even so, just treating one another with respect breeds respect, and all people deserve respect. And if we do that in our society, man, a lot of issues would just disappear, I'm quite sure. So I felt like a big thing, that I was ready as far as, being integrated into all races or any groups out there, that we were a step ahead of so many people, even people that grew up in cities, because they're isolated even more so than what we were, racially, sometimes, or they used to be. So hopefully that's all getting better. But there was a lot of wisdom and just the way we lived.
You were talking about the guy that rang the bell.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about him.
Well, he wasn't a very large man. And I don't know if he was actually British or exactly specifically where he came from. But he had such a heavy brogue. If things weren't going right, you might hear him muttering somewhere in a corner. You'd say, "What did he say?" And they say, "I don't know what he said." But he was always cheerful and ringing that school bell in the morning, and he'd say, "Good morning, buddy," when we came in.
So there were immigrants in the community as well.
Why, yes, that's where everybody came here. Everybody came here, one like the other. They came from a different situation, but they all came for a main purpose of work. And there was work here, and they came here from other countries. It wasn't just old-timer Americans, mostly, in the beginning, back in the beginning, because he brought in groups of immigrants. He brought in groups of freed slaves, and those people just, actually, that was like a level playing field. I wasn't born here, and neither was you. Tell me to go home? Well, where is that? How about you? You know what I'm saying? It was equal playing ground in that sense. So, I don't know. I feel like it made a difference. Well, I did what people did when the mines shut down, and even the young people coming out of school, there weren't that many job opportunities around here. Economically, we have a lot of economic depression for years, had a long history, I guess. But we go away to go to school, we go away to get jobs, all of that sort of thing, to develop our lives. And then as I got a little older, and I came back again to live, and I thought, well, I had a son by then, and so I thought this is probably a quiet and safe place to raise him, Those neighborhoods could be mighty big in the city. So I just felt better, I guess, and my family felt better, knowing that we were together. Families were like that then.
Do you remember September 22nd?
It just was, they would just say 22nd celebration time. And I do remember them getting the little circuses, well, not circus, but the amusement rides and games that Jerry mentioned. And of course there was always the merry-go-round and the tilt-a-whirl, those things.
Did you ride those things?
Oh, I did. And then they used to have street dances sometimes in the middle of the street.
What kind of music?
Well, normally it was just, I don't know, I'd say probably a country type mix. Now, in the old days of Rendville, they had music societies, groups here. So they had bands. But I wouldn't, I was before my time, but I've read about them, that they did exist. No, I guess I never really thought too much about the foods since I lived here. I didn't come
Oh,
needing my suppers.
you eat at home and then come.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was just great fun with people pouring into the village, you know, that just weren't here. That was exciting.
What about your parents?
They were just plain country people. My mother was born in the area, but not here. Her family wasn't from here. My father wasn't from here. But my mother's family came in here because of the mines. She had several brothers. And my father, I think he might have kind of tried it, but he was more of a farmer at heart. So he liked the big outdoors, open air, and all of that. He did serve here for several years as a postmaster. And it was very sedentary for him. And after a while, he told my mother, he said, "You know, this job's killing me." And she said, "What are you talking about?" Well, he had developed kind of a tendency to have pain sometimes in his chest. He said, "I think it's because I'm sitting around here on this doing nothing." And he would go out, and sometimes after everybody got their mail, because it's such a tiny village, and he'd just lock the post office door and be right in front of it. He dug up the bricks in the sidewalk, straightened them all up, and relays them between customers. He needed something to do, and so then eventually he did give it up and went into construction. So then he was his own private contractor.
What were their names?
Harris, his name was Rule, and her name is Lucy Tabler Harris. Mitchell, Lucy Tabler Mitchell. She was a young widow when he came here, and met her through her brothers. And so that's how they became acquainted, but they were from basically the same area. Areas closer to where you were last night, perhaps, Bidwell.
Okay.
Not Bidwell, but Chester Hill, you know of those, in Bartlett. Dad was from Bartlett area, his family. And of course, my mother's father's family was from Tablertown, or Kilvert, if you've heard of that. And then her mother's family was from Moxahala. So they got together and stayed here in Rendville and raised their family. And my mom and dad stayed here until they passed. And I spent the latter years of my father with him, taking care of him. He didn't need a whole lot of care, just kind of a little bit of bossing around, stay off of roofs and stay off of the concrete, let the other men do it, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Where are they buried at?
They are buried at Oakfield up 13, this side of Moxahala.
What about your grandparents?
My grandfather, well, my mother's mother is also at Oakfield. Her father is at Kilvert or Tablertown. And my father's mother and father are in the Harris Cemetery, in the area where he came from. Well, it's like any place, it has its upsides, but I do feel that I've been here in a time zone that many people would find really undesirable. I've watched the town die, actually. We've been here and saw the end of the coal mine industry go down, and watched the families move away one by one, pass away, you know, different things like that. So I feel like I've seen, you know, well, it's the story of a lot of towns around here. It's not just a Rendville story. It's the end days of a village, a good village that I think served a great purpose. And a lot of good people have gone out of here and scattered to the four winds of the earth. I'm quite sure of that. But I remember one time having met a gentleman through my work. And he's old, and he saw something, I think, in the news or on TV, and he said, they keep saying this and that about Rendville. He said, there wasn't. It was a black community. There wasn't nobody else lived there. And I just kind of, he's old, so I just kind of snickered to myself, and I thought, dude, you are talking to the choir. I came from there. So, I mean, a long list, you know, but we were just that kind of a community. And it wasn't that they intended it to be that way. That's the way it played out. And I think it was meant to, as far as I'm concerned, they could go back and take those items out and extract those things alone, the facts, and present those socially in the right way, and let people see that it works. Just treat each other with respect and understand that you are not the end all, the beat all. Everybody counts in God's big scheme, and I think that's really the big thing. So.